In the house is Dr. Ed Holliday, dentist from North Mississippi Dentistry, and partially retired but politically active. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Paul.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been.
So what do you do when you're not doing dentistry?
Well, I still do a podcast, and I invest in cryptocurrencies now.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Jeez, is that worth the stress level? I mean,
it's a rodeo. It's riding a bull, and a bear. But it's it goes up and down a lot quicker than regular stocks.
Yeah. If you wanted to just cash out today if you just cashed out, wouldn't you be better off? It depends on what you've got, but I mean...
Yeah, it depends on what you got. And, of course, I think our federal government get about half of what you cash out at.
Oh, is that right?
That's the way it looks like.
Some of the things that I think Senator Kennedy was mentioning this the other day, the inheritance tax and some of the things that they're working on in Washington is just... It's going to kill investments in innovation.
It's very scary. This is October, Halloween this month, and what's going on in Washington is very scary, much more scarier than Halloween.
But, Doc, I don't know if we can't stop it. I mean, the only thing you can do is just try to hold on. Thank God for Joe Manchin.
Yes, depending on a Democrat to slow down or stop something that can hurt the whole country.
As a matter of fact, and I want to talk about the medical marijuana when we come back after this is a short segment, and we'll get to that. But Joe Manchin said this, I think it was yesterday.
Did you share that number with the president, and has that 1.5
the last week or so?
Have you shared it with Senator Sinema? And did that number go up?
Senator Sinema knows that.
Has your top line raised since
my
then?
top line has not been. My top line has been 1.5 because I believe in my heart that what we can do and what the needs we have right now and what we can afford to do without basically changing our whole society to an entitlement mentality.
This is Joe Manchin. I mean, that's more conservative than Mitt Romney.
It is. And, of course, he's from West Virginia.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of West Virginians who wish he would switch parties, but he's not going to.
But here's the thing, and I've said this often. If we're going to turn this country around, it's not going to be only by the Republicans. We've got to have the Democrat Party move back toward the center somewhat. You know,
you mentioned it. The socialists are in the driver's seat now of the Democratic Party.
But they're not going
seat
to the center. They're going farther and farther left.
It is. It's very scary.
You want to know how far left they're going. Now, you listen to this comment here. And by the way, if the Democrats were out there saying, look, we need a stronger border, like they did 10, 15 years ago. We need a stronger border. We need to do this.
Right.
We need to look at what's going on with the deficit. All of these different things. Make business more conducive. Do whatever we can. Those two entities fighting each other for what is really best for the country in reasonable ideas would make this country a lot stronger. And that's the only way to save it. But you are right. It is not going that way. It's going the opposite way. Listen to AOC.
Well, I can see why Fox would consider a living wage to be a radical far-left agenda when they are supporting the incarceration of children at our border. I can see how they think that us believing that people should have the legal right to apply for asylum is so vastly different than their punitive policies to build a wall and shut our borders. It is radically different from their point of view, but we're not the ones that are advocating or defending the violation of human rights, and they are.
Your comments on that?
Well, I think Senator Ted Cruz said what AOC needs to do is go just like she did with President Trump. She went down to the border and exposed everything, and now it's much worse than when President Trump was in office. And she should be on the border showing what's going on in the chaos, and yet, she's just using it for a platform to push socialist policy.
I know this is not your field of expertise, but from some of the things that this guy has said, the president, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think he's losing it. I don't know how much longer he can hold on.
The fact that they got a makeshift studio that makes him look like he's in the White House, and it's outside the White House.
They can do that. They might be in Delaware for all we know.
But, is he making the final decisions? Kamala Harris, Vice President
I don't
Harris,
think she is.
She's, President Biden said, he wanted her to be the last one in the room. If she's the last one in the room, is she making the decisions about Afghanistan? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's scary to think, who is making these decisions.
Well, here's a good cut for that, because recently we found out that there's a big tiff between that the French are not happy with us on a particular contract, and the Australians. Now listen to this.
Okay. Was he not aware of the French deal on conventional?
Look, I think right now what our focus is on is moving forward.
He asked me about it, and I told him.
You told Joe Biden that it was not the right...
He asked me. He said, what's the situation? And I explained exactly. He had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired, and I don't want to go into the details of it.
John Kerry says that after France was cut out of the nuclear submarine deal and they were upset enough about being left in the dark that they pulled their ambassador, he went to the president and, quote, the president literally had not been aware of what had transpired. So what else are you guys not telling the president?
Of course, he was aware of the French being upset. Let me finish. Let me finish. I know John Kerry quite well. He, of course, was aware, the president, of the French being displeased about the deal with the Australians.
He had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired.
Here's one of those situations where either somebody's lying drastically, or his dementia has gone to the point where he can't remember anything.
Well, it is frightening to think that these, they said when Trump, they got Trump out of the White House, and then they said, well, now we'll get the adults in. If these are adults, we're in very, very serious trouble.
We've overshot that sucker.
Oh, you're right on that, Paul.
He had a press conference yesterday, or was it the day before? I think it was yesterday. But now you listen to this because this is any physician out there or psychiatrist a medical doctor would look at this and say, wait a minute, this is just not right. This is the President of the United States of America.
We've got state leadership here, Lieutenant Governor Julius here, Stratton, and the Ohio, Pennsylvania, I'm from Pennsylvania. The Illinois President of Don Harmon, State Senator Laura Murphy, State Rep Martin Moylan, and we got great labor leaders here too. Tim, where's Tim? There you go, Tim. Thank you. Thank you, pal. AFL-CIO State President. And Jeff Isaacson, United Brotherhood of Carpenters, and Don Finn, IBW, and Robert Reiter, R-E-I-T-E-R, Reader. If I can digress for just a second, last night I was on television. I was on the telephone.
Unbelievable.
At any rate,
that's the President of the United States,
yes.
And the people around the world. What do you think China's listening to? What do you think Putin's thinking? What do you think North Korea's thinking now? It's like I said, it's Halloween this month. It's scarier what's going on in Washington, D.C.
It scares me to think what they're thinking. I think a lot of this is he's been all of his life having a problem with his speech, and now his mind can't catch up to it to correct himself like he's been able to do when he was younger on it. So we'll talk more about that. All right. And also the medical marijuana when we return in a moment. This morning. All right, let's talk about this, because beside your dentistry, you've been politically active. What's next, by the way? Well,
Perez did want me to say one phrase to you.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, I'll be your huckleberry. From Tombstone.
Wait a minute. Do you remember them saying that, or was it Hackleberry?
No, it's Huckleberry.
It's Huckleberry. What was this in reference to?
Well, you have to watch Tombstone, but I will
watched
say,
it, but apparently I missed that part.
Well, I will say, one of the funny things in politics here, back in 2015, there's 13 of us running for the congressional seat there.
Yeah.
And I announced my candidacy right here on your show.
I remember that.
But we were all gathered in, and Trent Kelly, Representative Kelly now, he said, Doc, if you say I'll be your huckleberry, I'm hitting the ground. I like to think that might have helped save his life, because he's the first one shot at that congressional baseball field.
He sure was.
And he thank God.
All right. So, with your
all
political involvement and also as a dentist, and you look at this as far as the health care and everything else, what are your thoughts on this, or your worries? Because I'm getting word that there are some members of the House, maybe even the Senate. I certainly heard mostly in the House that they're just having a tough time being all in on voting yes for this thing.
Well, what you're seeing is democracy in action.
Mm-hmm.
We've got representatives who make laws, and this is some tough issues for a lot of people. But now the people of the state of Mississippi, the citizens, voted overwhelmingly. I know there's people look at the different percentages. The way the vote was, it was confusing, but I don't think it'll be good for Mississippi in the long run. But at the same time, if people vote for it, it's up to the legislators.
This sounds like a man who's going to be running for something pretty soon.
Oh, I don't see anything open to run for right now, but I.
My response to that is always, if you're right and the people we elect are not smarter than we are in any form or fashion, then when 51% of the people say get Joe Biden to do this or that and we vote for him, we turn out okay.
When you put Joe Biden in any mix, we're in problems.
Well, 51% of the people, so they wanted Joe Biden. So the majority must be right.
Well, in this case, I believe there's a lot of people who love to take that vote back. But talking about medical marijuana, it's the medical part where it's under prescription. Yeah, it sounds good, but it's just if you open up the whole state to marijuana, and my biggest concern is the children, and you make it more available, then we know by studies that the brains of teenagers, brains of children, do not, the marijuana keeps it from developing the way it should. So getting easier access to children is my biggest concern of marijuana. We've got to keep children and let people know children don't need to be.
Was that something in your career as a dentist that there was? And by the way, dentistry is probably the only thing that you guys would be the only one who can't write a certification.
Well, the legislators could open that up too.
The optometrist apparently had some friends on board, but you guys didn't have any friends on board to sneak in dentistry in there?
I don't know if a lot of dentists want to make that decision, but there may be some use for it.
So the dentists got left out of that. But when you start looking at this, doing research, and goodness knows we've done a lot of research over this in the last few years, you find 98% of the stuff is negative on this. It's just physically, financially, through society, the culture, and everything else. The only way that you're going to come out reasonable is if you do have a pure medical marijuana, and it is very, very strict. Now, the problem with that is the people who are coming in to do this to make money won't make as much money because you are cutting back on their clients, their customer base, with a pure medical marijuana. For the ones who signed on for compassionate use, where nothing else works, from whatever their disability might be or their ailment might be, all the way to hospice. When you start doing that, your customer base is not large enough.
Well, you just zeroed in right on the problem for the people who are making money from marijuana, and it is. There's so many stocks now. You can go on Wall Street, and there's big companies. It's that's pushing the marijuana, and they don't make as much if you just limit it to those people who really need it. So, what the legislators come up with, if they do come up with a plan, and I think they will, but it's. Keeping it limited is very important, and how they do that and work with law enforcement, that is the big that's the big
I will tell you this: law enforcement in our state, from the state side all the way down to the local municipalities, are worried like hell. They are just worried about this. They are not equipped to do this. They're not sure exactly how they're going to handle this. There's so many unanswered questions, and to be honest with you, the relationship between the man on the street and the police officers out there is not the best already.
That's why I brought up law enforcement.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear their input. I know the legislators need to hear their input, and I know there's a lot of people out there that like recreational marijuana, and they're watching this and they see it one step closer to being recreational marijuana in Mississippi.
But if anybody says that's not the ultimate goal, they're ball-faced lying to you. Number one.
I mean, we've heard these positions on so many different things. You know, you get a little foot in the door, and then it proceeds forward.
As a teen, pot made me want to hang somebody. It affects people differently. I hope you never acted that out from our ceasefire text line. Well, the other part of that too, and I always ask a question. Show me a state now that is better off financially, again, or physically, in their culture that has this. And I can't tell you which state that would be.
Well, the good thing is that our legislators can look where it's been used for recreation versus medical use only, and hopefully they can get a lot of knowledge when they put a bill together to use that knowledge to make one that's good for Mississippi.
You got some political connections out there. What's the buzz as far as the special session?
I feel like we'll see a special session, but I don't. How soon? I don't know. I mean, the governor has to call it. That's the way it is in Mississippi.
Well, I understand that, but, I mean, come on now. I mean, I got you in here. Give me some inside information.
Well, Paul, I think you're much wiser and got a few more connections than Doc Holliday does, probably.
Do you think it'll be called today? There's nothing that you've heard about today, but you have heard that there may be this deal swap as far as personal income tax versus Medicaid expansion.
Well, a lot of people have not heard about that. I have heard that rumor.
Yeah. Would you be okay with that?
Well, I'm for getting help to Mississippi if something will make Mississippi better. To me, I'd love to get rid of income tax, bring more people in, and I'd love to see people get health care. I think it'd be a great combination where, I mean, if people say, we're going to get all these jobs, if we bring in the health care, I'd say that would help us get rid of the income tax.
But you're not going to make it, because we only got a few seconds left now, so you're not going to make any political announcements today.
No, sir, Paul. I'm a happy man, and God would have to open up some big doors and knock them open if I was to do that.
You're a good man. I thank you, sir. It's always good seeing you.
Thank you, Paul.
You got it. Doc Ed Holliday, dentist in North Mississippi.